Okay, here's my bad point. And obviously on this one, you're all big boys. Put on your waders. Figure out what you're going to say. Don't touch the toxic waste. Don't get involved if you don't want to. Or do. Join in if you want to. It's fun. I'm going to say it, and I picked it as my bad point. I could have picked ugly, but I'm going to go bad. I'm just going to say it right now. The dupreeh in Falcons experiment failed. It wasn't even just not that good. It failed. Because remember, if you think role for role of who you were bringing him in for, you brought him in after Boros, right? He was here to be Boros / Nico, because originally it would have been Nico's spot, wouldn't it? You essentially said, and this is exactly why I hate sentimentalism in sports, by the way. What really happened, let's be real, is for whatever reason, Zonic sat around, he got that text, "You up?" from dupreeh, and he goes, "Oh, I remember the good times, dupreeh. Yeah, oh, sorry I had to sort of marginalise you in Vitality because I had all those big French players that were superstars. Hey, what if we got back together and it was just like the old days?" And it wasn't. There was the first, month where it looked good. After that, he has not only, as you say in English, withered on the vine. He looks way worse now. But secondly, think about how old this player is. This player is really old. He's had by the way, he's had some of the best longevity ever. He's had an amazing career. And now you've got this nightmare scenario where Nico is coming after all. Well, here's the obvious problem. One, are we just booting this guy? Because I tell you what, if we boot him, it's going to be even worse than Vitality. Sure, he's going to be totally betrayed and heartbroken and what the fuck, and hey, I wasn't even that bad. But if you look role for role, obviously you're booting him. I mean, I would ask this. Who else are you booting and keeping him for? I tell you what, I know everyone now who's a noob likes to go, I'd kick Madden. It's bro, have you ever seen what roles he has to play? That guy's a fucking soldier, mate. He just puts his hard hat on and goes to work, rain, shine, or fucking sleet or whatever. I'm not kicking that guy and keeping dupreeh. He's not going to do his roles. So I genuinely think they've got themselves in a really sticky situation where you've got this sentimental past attachment between Zonic and Magus to dupreeh, where if this had no nameplate, bro, you kick that guy tomorrow and get another player, or Nico comes in and that's who he replaces. But I actually think they're in a really sticky scenario. Do they stick with dupreeh and put him on a different spot? Does he somehow find again a sort of like a raw entry role like he had in Vitality or so? Who the fuck knows at this point in time, especially because all the players are worse than Falcons now. So I think it's just, bear in mind, he was one of the greatest players to ever play CS2. It's a really bad situation, I think, because it's an example of a player where I know people like me, you don't want to have to flame him. You want to say it's all the others and all the ones that didn't win the majors, but he is part of the problem at this point for me. So again, you choose how much you want to wade into this toxic mind. I'm okay, I live in it. Again, I was moulded by it and all that jazz. What do you think, Ash? What do you think about the dupreeh on Falcons angle?
If I think about the few things I've seen Falcons, I haven't really watched Falcons, to be honest.
Yeah,
they play. And to be fair, that when we have played them, I was actually pretty impressed by the way that they're setting up. They're clearly not copying anyone. They try to be original.
Okay.
So I respect that. I don't know if it's the best approach, but I respect it. They try to have their own style. But I think, remember the Boros talk, and it seems like these guys are, 4 of them, they're all very opinionated. I don't know how much some bias is, and they're all very opinionated, right? And I think from what I know from Boros is a very quiet guy. He's not going to point out the problems and everything. And when things aren't going so well, which they haven't been, I think the individual performance has been really down. They probably have too many voices pointing out the problems, pointing fingers at each other. And this dynamic in the team, it's really hard sometimes to not have someone who's just shutting up and being quiet, because I think 5 voices is too many.
Yes.
A lot of the time, it's usually the opposite, bit quiet, and all you have 2 riflers maybe that aren't speaking much, or they don't have many opinions, and they're just like, oh, I just play the game, I don't really care, I don't think about it. But I think all 5 of them are thinking so hard, they're probably doing the opposite of what tier 2 CS is, which is turn your brain off, trust your aim, go out and time and feel your game. They're probably trying to think, oh, I need to make this time for this guy, make this time and throw this smoke now, throw this flash, play, perfect play. Oh, we lost this round because you did this step when you shouldn't have done this step. And this is probably the sort of conclusions they're coming with, because they're so experienced. If they probably just turn their brain off, trusted their aim and played, they probably see some benefits to it. I'm not saying it's the way to fix this team, but I think that so many opinions can kill this thing, things. Sure. I actually think from what I've seen of dupreeh, he's actually looked pretty decent, and I think he's kind of his coincidence of being kind of good is kind of, you've seen Snappy drop off quite a lot. Some bias is kind of a bit random sometimes as well, and it's probably a little bit not all him, just Boros and everything. So I think, I don't know what you do kind of to fix him. Obviously they're making changes already. It's honest, sometimes you just need a few people focusing on the problems. You've got a very vocal coach, 5 people who speak all the time. This is the problem. This is the problem. I wouldn't like to be the guy picking whose decision is the right one out of everyone when they're arguing with each other. It's probably kind of difficult. And everyone is so experienced as well, right? They probably all have valid points, but how do you make it all in one direction? How do you get everyone on the same page when it's like that?
By the way,
really
The
hard.
point you're also making is something I do feel like a lot of casual fans miss about pro teams. Sometimes when you have those like supportive players that have the bad stats, people go, why don't they just kick him? It's like, believe it or not, sometimes a positive is they have no ego. They're not the guy ever like overruling someone. They just do what they're told. And sometimes actually having one less voice can be good. I know everyone thinks of the teams that don't have enough comms and they want more. You don't want 5 people talking all the time. That's actually a nightmare. It's why I've told that story famously. You know, Maui, you were there in the fucking green room. When we used to hear those OG voice comms and it was like Alexi B couldn't fucking talk because Valde was too busy arguing with MBK and then like, you know, fucking randomly like, I don't know, Issa would just have his opinion. It's like, bro, can we let the IGL talk here? Like he can't even get any bandwidth here.
Right. The fact that everybody, I mean, we saw the disconnect obviously when Vitality first brought in the Danish duo also, and so them trying to meld the French style with the Danish style. And the thing is that despite the fact that Snappy is Danish, he didn't call like Glaive. He never called like him. It was a very different type of Danish style. The only thing that they had in common is that they were both good at nuke, but they played completely different ways. Snappy liked explosive plays towards the A-bomb site. Glaive liked to bleed the whole map out. And so with dupreeh coming on the lineup, I feel like I'm glad that you bring it up because I feel like the community sentiment has not caught up with the reality that dupreeh is performing underneath what he should be. Because I say that right now, if you were to bring in one player or take out one player that is for Nico, who is that person? I did think that it was actually Modern for a while, and I'm actually glad you bring this up because lately I have been feeling like dupreeh has been pretty lame. He's been pretty much underperforming. Modern's roles are a little bit harder, and so even if his rating might.
Put it this way, wouldn't you agree, Maui? I'll give it to you if you disagree. You can disagree. If I had to pick someone whose roles would be like the star rifler, it's dupreeh's roles in this team, isn't it? Like, wouldn't you pick him? It's like he should have more production.
He should. It's kind of deviate. It's mostly dupreeh has star roles. I think Modern has a couple. Like Modern gets to play connector on Mirage, for example. So that's one where I think of, and I always think of like that's
enough.
Where you usually are put it. But a lot of teams also put it as the short guy, and dupreeh plays short. So it's kind of like either or would be fine to slot Nico in for one of those. So I'm not really stuck with an idea right now with who is out when Nico comes in. Is it Modern? Is it dupreeh? And I feel like the other aspect that you guys have thankfully brought up is also, I think dupreeh has a lot of ideas of how he wants to play the game, whereas Modern to me can be a bit more, he can be a specialist in some of those roles that he's put in by Snappy. He knows how Snappy's system wants to be run. He's actually, in terms of rating, they're very similar overall between dupreeh and Modern, and I feel like because dupreeh has actually done so well earlier this year with Preezy playing against kind of like tier 2/tier 3 teams, he's kind of has this rating boost, and if you just kind of click his name, it looks like he's really good, but he really does fall off once he plays some of the better teams in the world. And I feel like the whole him being older argument, man, they're all old on Falcons. Like, let's not get it mistaken. It's not like Modern's like a young budding talent either or anything, but he is younger. He has a lot more to prove, and he knows how to play under Snappy system. And so for a few of those sort of qualifiers, I would actually now shift it towards being a bit of a split. And I would just say that it's not an envious position to say, do we want to take out dupreeh or Modern for Nico? Because to me, it's got to be one of them. If it's a 1-for-1 replacement, it has to be one of those two. And now the conversation is very open for me.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.